6 earrings, 1 bead box, 0 rules. In this video, I'm creating an earring bash using the January 2026 Bargain Bead Box Arctic Aurora. I'll be making 6 different earring designs, 3 bead woven and 3 wire worked, to show you just how many styles you can pull from one collection. Let's start working on our mountain charm earrings. So for this one, we're going to be using scrap pieces of memory wire. So if you have any small amounts of memory wire left over from your spools, then this will be a perfect project to be able to use up those little scrap pieces. So what I ended up doing is going through my stash and finding two pieces of scrap wire, memory wire, that were about the same length. It doesn't have to be exact, but they're going to be about the same length. And to start off, we're going to make a loop with our bail making pliers on one of these ends. So I use the 6-step bail making pliers. I'm going to use the smallest step on this one. So this is how you do this part. So go ahead and put your memory wire in between the pliers, just like that. So that way you can't feel the wire on that end when you rub it with your hands or your finger. And then we're going to make one loop going inwards with our memory wire and pliers. And these are always really, really fun to make loops with. Sometimes they're really, really easy, and then other times it takes a minute. Alright, so now that I have a loop, I just went basically until I touched the other side again. I'm going to put the pliers back into loop again, and then I'm going to push backwards to try to get that loop to sit just like that, so it looks nice. Alright, so then that is the beginning. So the pattern. The pattern's I'll show you the pattern in just a second, but we'll end up doing 4 rounds of the pattern. And then that last little portion of the pattern, we're going to omit the last seed bead and the last of these little sparkly round beads that I can't remember what they're called, but they're little sparkle rounds that came in the kit. So we're going to start off with a triangle. I'm going to put that on first. And then all of our beads are going to have an 11-0 seed bead in between. So triangle, 11-0. We're going to pick up our faceted rondelles that we have, 11-0. Then we're going to pick up one of these, which I think were jade, if I remember right. I should have my little baggies out. I don't have them out, I put them up. But that's the gemstone. And then an 11, we're going to do another one of these sparkly rondelles. And then end up with the triangle, still putting 11-0 seed beads in between everything. And then the last 2 beads you put on is 11-0 and then your little star bead, star round bead. So that is the pattern that you'll be following, and you're going to do this 3 more times. So you start off with your triangle, work all the way to the little stardust bead. That's what I think they're called, stardust beads. So do that 2 more times, and then that last round we're going to end up making it look very similar to this over here. So just omit those last 2 beads on the last round. So go ahead and get that part done, meet me back, and I will show you the next step. Alright, now that you have your pattern finished, your earrings should look something similar to this. Now, like I said in the very beginning, just make sure you have 11-0s in between each bead. So you're actually omitting the last 2 11-0s and that last stardust bead here at the end. So what do we do now? Make sure all your beads are pushed over to your loop that you first made over here off to the left. And then we need a measure. I usually use the width of my finger as a guide as to how much to cut off. In most of my videos, I will lay my memory wire cutters right up against the edge of my finger. Well, in this one, I'm going to put the cut of the memory wire right at the edge of my finger. So right about in there. I'm actually going to go just slightly inwards a little bit more, just to make sure that it's not too bad. So I'm trying to get it to where my finger is. See how it's kind of sort of on the edge right there? And that's about what I'm going to cut off at. Now if it ends up being a little bit too long, perfectly fine. Just keep on twisting with your twist and it'll be just fine. So hopefully that is not too short. It's worked out perfect the first time for me. And looks like it's going to be just about perfect on this one too. So there you go. There is your loop that you have right there. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that we did on the other side. Just be careful though when you put your pliers back in here and you push backwards on it, because you don't want to crack that bead that's sitting right up against the edge. So now you have this portion done of your earring. So now let's get it to where we can add a jump ring we're going to add 2 jump rings to these 2 loops right here. One's going to be up here at the top so we can add our ear wire. The other one's going to be down in the bottom so we can add our charm. So the easiest way I found to do this is pick up one of your jump rings. I'll use the other one. The other one's open a little bit better. Pick up one of your jump rings. If they're not already open, go ahead and open it. And then we're going to pinch these 2 loops together until they're basically on top of each other. Just go through your first loop and then go through the second loop and then twist upwards. And if you have to, you might have to hold on with it with your hands. I know I did when I had to do the first one. And I'm losing it. Alright. Losing grip on it. So let's get that one back in there again. Alright, what I'm trying to do is hold the jump ring there so I can kind of close it up some before it falls off again. There we go. Now it should be to where I can close it. Maybe. Okay. Maybe we should just go with it. Alright. Grab the pliers quickly and try to close. There we go. It's the one bad thing about working with memory wire is that sometimes it's really hard to maneuver around and everything. Alright, so now we have one of our jump rings that's going to be up there at the top. That's going to be what our ear wire is going to be attached to. And now we're going to put the other jump ring on the bottom. Now on this one, I'm going to add just the jump ring, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to add the charm afterwards. Open that one up just a little bit. And then we're going to do the same thing down here. We're just going to make sure that this jump ring is on the bottom portion of the loops. And this is probably the hardest part of this whole earring, is just getting these 2 jump rings on without dropping them, without throwing them across your desk, and getting them onto the earring. Alright. So that's sitting there. Alright, there's the one loop. To get the second loop in there. Alright, I'm going to lay this on the... No, I lost it again. Alright, now I got a hold of it. Okay. And we're going to attempt to close this one up without getting the pliers in the way. There we go. Alright, now I need to make sure that that one's actually closed and I didn't leave an opening on it. Alright, it does need to be played with just a little bit, but that's okay. You get the gist of what I'm doing with that one. So now I'm going to open up this other jump ring because I already put 4 more jump rings onto my charm. So it'll be a total of 5 jump rings holding onto your charm. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this one, and then I'm going to slip it on to that bottom jump ring. Okay, apparently this is easier said than done for me today, even though the first ones worked out just fine. Alright, let's try this again. I think it's just the camera issues. It's like every time you turn on the camera and start recording, things always happen kind of weird. Oh Lord, that was really, really loud, and I apologize. Okay. Now, we've got our charm sitting there. So now all we have to do is just put on our ear wire. Now the only thing with the ear wires is that you have to try to figure out, okay, this is going to be the side of the earring. This is going to be the side of the earring. So the earring is going to be sitting like this on your ear. And it's going to sit like that. So do you want your moon facing in this direction, or do you want your moon facing in that direction? So it's completely up to you as to what you want. I want the moon facing like this, so that way when it's sitting on the ear, the moon is actually facing towards the front of your head. That's the direction that I want it to sit. So we need to make sure that this goes on, your ear wire goes on in the direction that you want the earring to sit in. And then close that up. And then once you get your other one done, then you'll have a matching pair of earrings. So let's make the matching pair to our North Star earrings today. So this is going to be using the 22 gauge wire. I'm just using the craft wire from Softflex, and I'm using the pewter color, silver plated pewter color. So I'm going to keep everything on the spool, keep the wire on the spool, and then I'm going to add all the beads to that. And what we're going to end up doing is two different links. The first link is going to have this cute little spiral down here at the bottom. I thought that would be pretty nice to do with the star link that's up there. Kind of give it the little nod to a galaxy, and then you have your star, and then we're going to do just a typical link up here. Alright, so let's get our beads onto the wire first. So just get a little bit of wire out. You don't have to have a whole lot of wire out at the moment. I'm going to start off with adding one of the apatite beads. I believe this was apatite. It's the little itty bitty small gemstones that we got. Then we're going to put one of the triangles on, and I'm not paying attention to what side I'm putting the triangle on, I'm just putting that on. Then we're going to put one of these pave beads on, the really sparkly guys, and then we're going to do the opposite, put on a triangle and then another one of the tiny gemstones. And then I'm going to do the same thing one more time, once I find the hole to the tiny gemstone. And I actually tested all my gemstones before I started recording just to make sure that the holes were big enough to go over the 22 gauge. I would suggest to do that too. I mean, obviously if you're going to be stringing on your beads and stuff like that, you'll know right away. But don't force your tiny gemstones on if they're not fitting. You would either move to a different gemstone, just don't use that specific one, or go back and use 24 gauge wire instead of 22. So whichever one works for you. Alright, so now I have, that's probably about, what, 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches or so just laid out. I'm going to take my nylon jaw pliers and I'm going to straighten it out a little bit. And I'm just doing this one little spot right here first. And what we're going to do first, before we start cutting off any of our wire, is to make that little spiral. I'm going to use my chain nose pliers. Now you can use your round nose pliers too, but I felt like this was just a little bit easier for me and made it look more like an oval rather than a round. I'm going to take the chain nose pliers and I'm going to put the very tip of the pliers at the very tip of the wire. And then I'm just going to fold over until it touches the other side. So it should look something like that. And then now I'm going to use the pliers and I'm going to continue to roll and basically make myself an oval. So I'm rolling with my right hand and then I'm also pushing the wire with my left hand. So that way it continues to move. And once you get around to where you have at least 3 full loops, right now I'm at 2 loops, because the very beginning there in the center is almost touching where my working wire is at. So I'm going to get 1 more loop done. So just continue to do this little wire. Let's see, 1, 2, yeah. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going over. Okay. 1, 2, and then 3. Just like that. Now I'm going to go slightly past that because I want my the wire to be sitting in the middle of the loop itself. So I'm going to go slightly past that. So basically where this little middle portion that we started off with is now up against the working wire, the working portion right now. Then I'm going to put my pliers right at that spot where they meet. And then I'm going to use my fingers and I'm going to push backwards with the spiral. So now you have a little right angle portion to allow your straight portion to be kind of in the center of your little spiral down there. So now, after you get that done, move your beads down to the end until you get to your second little tiny gemstone. Just like that. So that's what our little link is going to end up looking like. I'm going to measure a little bit more than 4 finger widths of a length, and then flush side towards the product itself. I'm going to cut that part off. So that's our first one made. Our second one is going to be just a normal, what am I thinking of? A normal loop, a wired, wrapped loop, normal wrapped loop. So warming up the wire about 2 inches down from the end of the wire. I'm going to go ahead and bend over. Now I'm going to pull up my tiny little gemstone so I can do how I measure where to put my loops at and everything. I'm going to use the round nose pliers and I'm going to go to the left side of that gemstone, line up the left side of the pliers to the left side of the gemstone, and then that's where I'm going to make my loop. So we're going to go up and over till it touches, open the jaws, switch the jaws, and then continue your loop to the back. So it'll look like that. So now we're going to have a wrap. Trying to get everything situated so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm holding on to the loop with my right hand in the pliers, and I'm going to wrap around 3 times. And then once I get the 3 loops done, and that probably needs to be squished just a little bit. Seems a little bit large. There we go. Just squishing that just a little bit. I'm going to cut off the excess, flush side towards the loop itself. And then I'm going to tuck in this little portion that we just cut off. Okay. Once you get that done, put all your beads to the bottom like we did with the previous one. And then we're going to cut off 4 finger widths of a length, flush side towards everything, all your beads, and then cut that part off. So now you have your 2 lengths done. So go ahead and get caught up with me on that part, and then come back and I'll show you the next. So we're going to start off with our little spiral link first, and then we're going to attach it to our North Star link that we have, and then we'll do the other one and attach it to the top side and then attach the ear wire. So to do this in the way that I typically do, I'm going to do the same thing like we just did with the round bead and the round pliers. I'm going to, on this one though, with my chain nose pliers, line up the left side of the pliers to the triangle bead that's down here instead of the round bead. So the round bead is going to be for the round wires, the triangle bead is going to be for the chain nose pliers. Then we're going to push over for that. Now we have our round nose pliers again. So our loop needs to be the same, just about the same. So we're going to line it up to the left-hand side of our round bead with our round nose pliers. And then we're going to make our loop that way. Now the only difference with this one, go up and over, open your jaws, switch to the bottom, and continue to the back, and then stop. Don't continue to wrap yet, because we need to add our link first. To do that, I'm going to twist this open like we would a jump ring to give it a little bit of extra room. And then we're going to put our star charm on, our link, not a charm. And then we're going to close that loop back, so just twist it back like you would a jump ring. So that's what it looks like so far. And then this is where it kind of gets a little difficult sometimes, but just try your best to hold on to the loop if you need to. And then use that long portion and then wrap around the base of the wire 2 to 3 times. Just like that. So now that you have your 3 loops, now you can cut off. And Casper is very excited about somebody that's in the front yard somewhere. It's probably kids coming home from school. It is that time of the day for kids to be coming home. Alright, so there is that portion done. So now we're going to do the same thing on this part. Now this part that we've already done, this is where our ear wire is going to sit. So now we need to do the same type of loop down here in the bottom that we just did. So go ahead and line up your chain nose pliers with your triangle. Push over, get your round nose pliers, and then line that up with your round bead, your round little gemstone. And then start your loop up and over, continue to the back, and then stop. Open up your loop by twisting it like we would a jump ring, and then add the other part of your star charm. Twist your loop back closed like you would a jump ring, and then hold on to that loop as best you can if you need to, and then wrap around the base wire 2 to 3 times. Now when you get that done, cut that part off, tuck in your little excess that you have right there. And then now all we have to do is add our ear wire. And this is the simple part. Just twist that open and then slide on the wrapped loop. Whoops, I didn't twist it enough. There we go. Slide that on. And when you get your second one done, then you have a matching pair of North Star earrings. There's your pair. So let's make our polar bear earrings. Now the first thing you want to make sure that you have is that your head pin, or in my case I'm using a little ball head pin, whatever you're using, you need to double check and make sure that the ball or the end of it does not go straight through your bead. So that's the first thing to do. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to make a bend in our head pin. Now the head pin we're going to use for both this portion and for the middle portion too. So I'm going to line up the left-hand side of my chain nose pliers to the side of the bead when it's sitting on its side like this. Then I'm going to bend over. Now to make my loop, So that way our loop is about the same for all the loops that we're making. I'm going to put my round nose pliers in there and line up the left-hand side of my round nose pliers to the left side of the bear, so the back side of the bear basically. And then that's where I'm going to make my loop. I'm going to go up and over, and then change jaws, and then continue the loop, if it'll let me. Now I know this is a different way of making loops, but I've been experimenting with this and it seems to be working out pretty well. So I'm going to do it on this video. So now that I have my loop, now I need to make it an eye pin basically. So I'm going to put my pliers right up against where the loop is up against the straight portion, and then I'm going to cut that part off. So now your loop here is still open, so we need to make it just a little bit smaller to close it up some, and then twist it closed. And then now you have your loop made for your bear. So it's a little bit different of a way to make a loop, but I've been experimenting with it, like I said, and I kind of like the way that it looks, so I've been doing that lately. So now I'm going to put my loop back into my round nose pliers to kind of give myself an idea, because this is going to be about the same size of loop that we're going to make for this portion right here that we're going to add our beads to. So I'm going to put that in there to kind of give myself an idea of where it's supposed to be. And then I'm going to put my wire in the pliers at about that same spot. And then I'm going to twist until the wire hits on the other side, like that, with the wire still in the pliers. I'm going to twist backwards so that way it sits just about in the middle of the circle, the straight portion does. Then I'm going to put my beads on, so the stardust bead, then the mermaid slash, I think it was moonstone bead, and then another stardust bead. Now we're going to need to make a loop in the same direction as what our loop is going in at the current moment. So we're going to make another loop in that same way. I'm kind of getting an idea of where this one is at. I put my loop down in the bottom again. Before I do that, I need to try to remember how I did this. I think this one I actually did do the typical way. So I bend over the wire just ever so slightly, just above that stardust bead. So right at the tip of the chain nose pliers. And then, oh, it's going to end up being in the wrong spot. That's fine. I'll show you how to fix it. And then I line it up. I get a gauge as to where I'm at on the round nose pliers. Line it up about that same spot. And then go up and over and around. And continue on. Just like that. And that gives us two loops that are about the same. And I'm going to cut off like I have been doing. And just make sure to hold on to it or shield it somehow so it doesn't go flying across your desk. And then close that up. Make sure it looks all good and closed. Now our loops are in the wrong direction because it slipped in my hand and I made it in the wrong direction. So what I'm doing is I'm holding on to both sets of the pliers, so now you can see that my pliers are perpendicular to each other. You want them to be parallel, so all I'm going to do is twist until they're parallel like that, and then now your loops are, well, should be, there we go, twist a little bit more, and now your loops are in a similar position. So now it's just assemble time. So take one of your pliers, open it up, put your ear wire on, and then close that one up. Just make sure that you're touching the other part of the wire. That one was open still a little bit, which is fine. Just make sure it's touching some, so that way it doesn't come apart. And then open up the other end, and then put your bear on there. Then once you get done with that, then you'll have a matching pair of polar bear earrings. So let's make the companion to our falling star earrings. So this one's going to be bead woven. And the only thing that we're going to need to start off with at the moment are going to be your round or your English cut crystals, your 15s, and your 8s. Everything else you can go ahead and put off to the side for a minute. So I'm going to do just that so the camera doesn't go nuts trying to focus on everything. Alright, I'm going to put one of these beads off to the side too because I only need 9 to start off with. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick up one of our crystals and then a seed bead, a 15-0 in between. We're going to do that 4 times. So that's 4, and then make sure you end with a seed bead if you start with a crystal first. So 4 and 4. And then we're going to pull this down to the end of the thread until you have a comfortable amount to hold on to down here at the bottom. Then I'm going to go ahead and go through all 8 of these beads again. Just make sure that you're going through your 15s. Sometimes your 15s, it looks like you're going through them, and sometimes you miss them. So just make sure you're going back through your 15s again. Now you don't want to put too many passes of thread through the 15s because we're going to go back through these one more time again. And then I'm going to proceed back through that first crystal. So I'm going to come out that first crystal just before that first seed bead in our line. And then just pull both ends tight so that way it looks something similar to that. So it's a cute little right angle weave unit. Now we're going to add beads up here at the top so we have something that our ear wire can sit onto. So this part I ended up adding just a 15, an 8, and a 15. You're going to see just a little bit of thread sitting over these beads right here. So if that bothers you, go ahead and just add 2 15s, an 8, and 1 15, whichever one you're comfortable with doing. Then I'm going to pick up one of my crystals again, and I'm going to pick up one more 15. And then we're going to pull this down to the thread, or to the project. We're going to skip over that last 15, go back through the crystal, and just the crystal. Now we're going to add more beads on this other side. So I'm going to pick up another 15, 8, 15. We're currently coming out, or this first little leg right here is currently coming out the right hand side of the top bead up here. I'm going to go to the left hand side of the bottom bead and then go towards the right. And that puts these beads on basically as a diagonal. And then we'll also get this bead here on the top to kind of sit in the center. So now let's add some more beads on the side. So we're going to pick up a 15, 8, and 15. We're going to go through just the crystal. And then we're going to have to wrap around that 15 up there. Just make sure you keep everything a little tight because the tightness is what keeps everything together. And we're going to go through that 15. And then we're going to go back down the crystal. And we're going to add that last leg to this. So once we get that last leg on, once I can get back down through the crystal, then we're going to get the last leg on. So we're going to put the 15, 8, 15. And then when you're looking at your beads, let's see, this is the first one that we were coming out of right here where our starter thread is at. So the first side came out of the right side, so we're going to go through the left to the right, just like that. So now you should have your bead sitting just like that. And see how you can see just a little bit of thread? If, like I said, if that bothers you, just add a couple more 15s and they'll disappear. So we got one more thing to do on this little portion, and then I'll break and let you get caught up. I'm going to go through that 15, 8, 15 that's on this side, go through the crystal, come on out, go ahead and go through the 15 one more time, and we're going to add an 8-0 here at the top. We're going to use a jump ring to attach this ear wire, but we need an 8/0 because the jump ring is not going to go through a 15. So put your 8/0 on, and we're square stitching on that 8/0 to your 15. So I usually do 2 thread paths through an 8 when I'm square stitching on, just to make it a little bit tighter, a little bit nicer. So go back through your 8 and then go back through your 15 one more time. If you're having issues going through your 15 so many times, you may have to move to a size 12 needle. And that should help out, because you should be able to get at least 3 to 4 paths of thread, of the wildfire thread at least, in your 15/0s. So I'll get you set up for the next portion, and then I will break. We'll go back through the crystal, and then we're just going to go down one of the legs. Doesn't matter which one, so whichever one that you're sitting close to, go down one of the legs. So the 15, the 8, and the 15. And then I'm going to proceed through the crystal that I'm sitting next to also. After you go through that crystal, one last step, go through the 15. And now I will break, allow you to get caught up to where I'm at, and then I'll show you the next step. Once you get caught up to that, let's make our little dangles to where our little, what are these going to be called? I guess the arms of the earring and all the star charms and all of that are going to hang off of. So to do that, we're coming out of our 15/0 right here, and we're going to add an 8, a 15, another crystal, a 15, and an 8. So we're basically going to go back through everything kind of similar to what we did up here at the top. So we're going to skip over the 8 and then go back through the 15 and the crystal, the 15, the 8, and then make sure everything is up close to the product up here at the top, just like that. And then we're going to go back through that 15 that we were first coming out of. So right now the thread is coming out of the right hand side of the 15/0. So we're going to go from the left to the right and go straight through that 15, and then if I can get it to work, there we go. So go through that 15, and then to move on to the next one, go through your crystal and go through the next 15 that is sitting there. So we're going to do this all the way around. So go ahead and continue that little drop and do that 3 more times, and then come back and I'll show you how to tie off on this, and then we'll do our little charms down here in the bottom. I just added that 4th little leg right here, so I'm coming out of that 15/0 right here, so I've already wrapped around it. So what I need to do now is I need to get back over here to the starter thread in order to tie off. So I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat. So I'm coming out of that 15/0 right there. I'm going to go straight up the 15, 8, and 15 that is up along the side right here, and then come out before you get to the crystal. So just those 3 beads of that leg. And then I'm going to go down the one that's it's sitting right next to. So the 15, 8, and 15. And then that will get you right next to where your thread should be, your starter thread should be. If you're in a different spot, then just move around your product until you get to that starter thread. And then we're going to do a right over left, left over right. Just make sure you're not wrapping around any extra beads at all, and that your knot is secure that way. So before I tie off, or before I burn off, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip over the 15/0 that's in between these 2 crystals, but I'm going to go ahead and go through the next crystal in line. And that should allow that knot to sit where it needs to be at, so it's kind of hidden in between all the beads and everything. And then that's where I'm going to burn off. And then this portion of the earring is done. and I will show you really quick how to do the next part. So make sure you burn off both sides because you don't need the starter thread anymore either. And then burn that down. And then that's the first part of the earring done. So the next thing that we need to do is make little charms that are similar to this. So these are going to be basically what we just did here, but we're going to do a bunch of these. Now the biggest thing is that on my package I had an even amount. So I was able to use the same amount in one earring and the same amount in the other earring. Now I ended up doing 16 of these little links on this earring. So if you have enough left over to where you can do 16 yourself, then by all means go ahead and do that. If you don't have enough for 16, then your individual links like this are going to be slightly different. So just do as many that you can to make it as even as you can, and then we'll go on from there. So to do this, we're just going to take our piece of thread. I always started off with a crystal. I felt like it was easier to do it this way. Do the crystal, a 15, and an 8. So we're going to do one side, bring it all the way down to the end of the thread, just enough to hold on to, skip over the 8, go back through the 15 and the crystal, and then pick up another 15 and another 8. We're going to do this other side, skip over the 8, go through just the 15, and then that puts you right where your starter thread is at. So go ahead and do that part, and once you get that done, so just make sure you don't go back through the crystal, then we're going to tie this part off. So right over left, and then left over right again, and there we go. Oops, nope, I missed it. So once you get that done, then we're going to burn off this. Actually, no, I'm going to go through the crystal again. I almost forgot to do that. Go through the crystal one more time, so that way it will get your thread, or that's not to go through the crystal and sit in the middle there. So just tug on it a little bit until your knot is in the crystal, because you'll feel it. You'll feel it kind of jerk a little bit, and then that's when you know that it's there. And then just burn this one off. I will make a smaller little burn mark here because it's just a little itty bitty small spot that you have to burn down. So just make sure that you don't burn through any of your working thread, so you don't have to do this one all over again. So that's how you make these little things. So like I said, if you have enough to do 16 for each earring, then go ahead and do 16 of these, and then that way you can follow the same pattern that I am. If you have a little bit more, then you can do more if you want to. If you have a little less, then we'll have to do just a slightly different pattern. But go ahead and get those 16 done. So now let's use 4 of our little links that we just made with the seed beads and the crystals, and then we're going to use 2 of our stars per each one of our 4 legs here on the earring. So we need to first get our stars cut off of the chain. So just make a little mark in the jump ring that's holding the stars together, and then I just use the pliers here and just twist it a little bit to the side like you would like a jump ring, and then twist that off, and then you have one of your stars released from the link. So go ahead and get 2 stars per arm, so you'll need 8 per earring, or 16 total. And get those cut off. And then put it off to the side right there. Alright, move that out of the way, that out of the way. Alright, so now we're going to assemble our lengths. We're going to have 3 of these attached to each one of these arms like this. So the first thing we want to do is to take a jump ring and go ahead and add a jump ring onto one of the 8-ohs on one of the legs of the earring. I felt like this one, that doing this first made it a lot easier to get everything put together. So go ahead and put on a jump ring on one of the 8-ohs and then close that up. Then that way you know which one that you're working on also. So you don't get lost on which one you're adding your links to. Alright, so that's the first one we're going to work on. Now we're going to make 3 different chains of everything. So the first one is going to be just one of our beaded links. So we're going to do the same thing, going to add it onto the 8-oh, just like we did just a second ago. And then we're going to add this to the jump ring that we just added. And then that will be the first one. So every time I do one of these legs on the earring itself, I always start off with the first bead like this, so that way everything hangs in the same direction. So start off with the first one like that. The second one is going to be one of your beaded links. Then this one gets attached to one of the stars. And then the other portion of the star, the other half of the star, is going to get it attached to the base of the earring. So there's that. This earring, this pair of earrings uses a lot of jump rings. So if you have a lot of jump rings just lying around, don't use them very often. This is a good one to use your jump rings with. Now what you want to make sure that when you're adding your second and your third length to this jump ring, you want to make sure that the jump ring that you're adding is added on the right hand side of the jump ring that's already on there. So you want to make sure that it goes to the right of the jump ring that's already on there. And then the same thing with the third one. You want to make sure the third one is to the right of the first 2. And then the third one, I always find it's easier to start off with the 8-oh first and then add your star. So we're going to put the 8-oh, or put the jump ring on the 8-oh, then add your star link, and then close that up. Oh, hate it when it does that. And then we're going to pick up another 8-oh, or another jump ring, and go through an 8-oh on the other link. And then when you get that on there, then pick up the other side of your star link, so that way you have 2 beaded links on either side of the star on this one. And then your last jump ring on this part is going to get added to one of the open 8-ohs, and then this is the part that gets added to the right side of the jump ring on the base of the earring. So just like I said earlier, you need to make sure that you have your 2 other links here, and we go to the right of those jump rings. Just make sure you don't go through any of the other jump rings, you just want to go through the one. Because sometimes it can link onto some of the other jump rings too, or try to. And then that is how you do each one of the legs of this part of the earring. So that's what that looks like. So go ahead and complete the rest of all 3 of the rest of those in whatever pattern that you want to complete it in, and then meet me back and then I'll show you how to put it all together. Once you get all of your links added on to the legs of the earring, then your earring should look something similar to this. It's very sparkly. I like it. I think it's different. It's neat. So the last thing we need to do is add our ear wire. So just pick up one more jump ring, go through the 8/0 up here at the top, and then before you close up the jump ring, you can just go ahead and add your ear wire, whatever ear wire of choice that you choose to make. Then close up that jump ring like we have with all the others. And then when you have your second one done, then you have a pair of falling star earrings. So let's make the companion to the Blanket of Stars earring. So this is going to be a right angle weave base, and then we're going to strengthen the right angle weave. Then we're going to come back and embellish it with our little stars. So to start off, I'm going to move that out of the way. I have 20 of my 11/0 seed beads already on the thread. I'm going to move these down to the end of the thread. And wow, I almost lost some of them. I'm going to move them down to the end of the thread, and so you have a little bit left over to hold on to. Then I'm going to go back through just the first 5 that I added, so just 5 seed beads. Then that will make our first right angle unit. Now we're going to do 3 rows of 3. So now that we have the 20 on here, each side of our right angle unit is going to be a side of 5, so we need to pick up 15 for this next one. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then we're going to wrap through these 5 beads that we just went through one more time. So from the left to the right. And then that puts our second box on there. So now we have to get up to the top row up here. So we need to go through the 5 beads on the side, on the right side here, and then the 5 beads on the top. Then that gets us set up to where we can add our third row. So add 15 more on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then circle through those last 5 beads that we just went through. And then that puts our third box on our first row. So now we need to get over here off to this side to add on our second row. And then after that, it's pretty much going to be about the same. You just have to think about where your thread is going. So I'm going up the 5 beads on the left. Then we're going to go through the 5 beads on the top. And then we're going to come out the 5 beads on the right side, which is now going to be the new left side. So now this is going to be the left side of the next box. So now we need to add 15. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And then circle back through those last 5 beads that we just went through. And then this box is going to be slightly different. We need to put a box right here. So we already have the top and we already have the left. So we need to add the right and the bottom. So to get through that, we go through the top 5 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're only going to add just 10 beads. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we're going to go up the 5 beads on the left. Just like that. Now you need to add one more box down here in the bottom. So just move through the 5 beads along the top again. Then Then we're going to go down the 5 beads on the side. And now we need to add a right hand side and a bottom. In order to get to that, we need to get down here to the bottom first. So we need to go through the 5 beads on the current bottom part, which is going to be the top of the new box, and then the 5 beads on the left. And then now you're set up to add your 10 beads again. Just make sure your tension is good, because we didn't tie off yet. So that is how you do the right angle weave portion itself. So go ahead and complete this box, and then you'll need to have 3 more boxes off here to the side, so you end up with a total of 9 boxes total, a 3x3 grid. So I'll meet you back in just a second. Once you get your 3x3 grid done, now we need to strengthen our raw unit so that way it doesn't flop around so much on the ear. To do that, we're currently coming out of this portion right here. So we're coming out of the left hand side of this bottom and or top row. I'm going to proceed down the left hand side of that box, that middle box. I'm going to pick up one of my 15s. Of course, it's one of the crystals, so it's kind of hard to see, but I'm picking up one of my 15s. Then I'm going to proceed around this middle box here and adding a 15 on all 4 corners. So just go through the one side, add a 15, and so on and so forth until you get all 4 corners done. And then we'll proceed out to the outer edge and then do the same thing around the outer edge. So once you go back through that last 5 again, just make sure not to go through the 15. If you do, it's not a big deal. You just won't be able to go in the same direction that I'm going in. So from now, I'm going to go through these 5 beads right here to get out to the edge. And since we're coming out in between a section, I'm going to go ahead and go through these 5 beading away from me. You can go in the opposite direction if you like. Just whatever is more comfortable for you. Then we're going to add a 15 and go through the next 5 beads. And then just make sure here on the corner that we add a 15 in between the corner. So the right hand side and then the top. And then go through those 5 beads. And then just proceed on around until you get to the other side. Once you get to the other side, then we'll start adding our embellishments on the inner portion of our roll unit. Once you get your 15s added in there, now your piece is much more rigid, so it's not going to wobble around and deform as easily anymore. So I'm currently coming out of the right hand side of this middle box over here on the right. So I'm coming up out of the top up there. I want to now add an 8-0, one of the star beads, and an 8-0. And we're going to embellish each one of these 9 boxes. I'm going to start off with embellishing this one right here, then I'm going to move down to this one, and then go across this way, and then we'll come around. So to do that, I'm coming out of this bead up here. I'm going to go to the bottom of this current box and go from the left to the right, out towards the right hand side. Just like that. And when you do that, that puts your beads in the center of that box. Now you're set up to be able to put the same thing down here on this box. So just pick up an 8-0, a star, and an 8-0. Now we don't have another box down here on this side, but we have one over here. So to get set up in that same spot to where we're coming out of this little corner right here to be able to put the star in the same direction, instead of going down the bottom here, I'm going to go through the left-hand side of this current box towards the top. And then that gets us set up to add the 8-0, star 8-0 in this one. So this part is just trying to think, okay, where am I going to put my thread to where I can get set up to where I'm on the top right hand corner of that current box, and we need to go down to the bottom left hand corner of the next of that box to get set up to be able to get the next one done. So on this one we'll just do just that. Go through the left hand side, going through that 15. Try not to go through the 15s, just go through the 11 O's right now. And then that gets you set up for the next one. And I'll do a couple more, and then that's all you have to do is just try to think about, okay, where do I need to go next? So I need to go above me. So I still need to go through these beads down here. And then this is where you can kind of make a judgment call. If you want to, you can just cheat and go straight through that 15. And then now you're set up in that bottom left hand corner to be able to add your next one in. You can do it that way, or you can go through the beads down here in the bottom, then go through the beads here on the right. Just depends on whatever you want to do. I'm starting to get a little short on thread, so I'm going to cheat and go through this one. So now I need to add a bead right here. So I'm going to have to go from the top to the bottom on the right hand side of this current box to get set up in the bottom left hand corner of that middle box. So that one's put in there. Then we have to put in the next one, but I need to get to a point to where I can start adding in beads over here off to this side. So then this one, let's see, this one way or another, I'm going to have to go through a couple of different beads. So we're just going to go through the top from the right to the left. And it's just the way that I ended up beading all these on. I'm going to go ahead and go to the top here on the left hand side. I'm going to go ahead and do this top one. And I'm showing you all the differences on how to do this, just in case you are a little confused on this. Hopefully not. Hopefully this is making sense. So I'm going in that direction. Now I'm going to skip over the 15-0 because I don't want to get too many thread paths through it. And then go through the next 5 11-0s if I can get my needle in there. Not wanting to find the 11-0s. Okay. And then, alright, so I'm already going through there we go. So now I'll get to the same spot. So I went ahead and went through the 15-0 that was sitting right here. So now we're going to add our next one. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Go up to the left hand side, and then we've got to go through all the 5 here that is on this part of the box. That 15-0, if you go ahead and catch it, it's not going to end the world. And then you got to come out the top right hand side of that last box. Let's see, I'm not quite there. I got one more to do. And then that will get you set up to add your star to the last box. So 8, star 8. And then you can go up through this side right here. Now the only other thing that we need to do is add our wire guard. So I'll go ahead and do that in this little section. Move the rest of my 8-0s off to the side, get my wire guard out. Now when you're doing your first one, you don't have to worry about which orientation that you're in. You just pick an orientation. Do you want your 8-0s to be horizontal like this, or do you want your 8-0s to be vertical like this? So just whichever way that you want to do it, just make sure that your opposite earring is in the same fashion as this one. So I'm going to go ahead and go through these top beads one more time. This is why I was saying you might want to skip some of the 15-0s, because sometimes if you get too many thread pass through the 15s, it might make it a little bit harder to do this last little section. But I'm going to go through, and I'm going to go through that corner 15 also, because that's where we're going to add our wire guard on. So go ahead and go up the wire guard on one side, and then bring it down to the earring, go down the wire guard on the other side. Now before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and take my pliers and I'm going to pinch the wire guard closed. When I'm using 15-0s like this, I like to try to pinch it just at the tip to make it sit a little bit nicer on top of the 15s, like that. That's just preference. You don't have to do that. But just like any other time, I like to have 2 thread pass through the wire guard, so go ahead and go up the wire guard one more time. And then the only other thing that we have left to do is move through our beads until we get back over here to the starter thread, which is on this side. This is one reason why I chose to go in this direction. So it's easier to get back to the starter thread. So go through the 5 in that first box. I went ahead and went through that 15 because this is the last time I'm going through anything. And then went through the next 5, and then now I'm set up to where I'm at my starter thread. And making sure things aren't twisted. Okay, we're good. And then we're going to make our knot here. I just have one more length to go through. I'm going to go through this part right here just to get that knot or the thread away from the knot itself. So that way you don't have both lengths of the thread right there. And it kind of helps to pull that knot inside one of the beads also. And then I will burn off. And then burn that down close to the earring without going through any of your working thread. Do the same thing with the starter thread. After you get that done, we just have to add our ear wire. So just like all the other ear wires, I'm using the same ear wires for all the earrings. Just make sure you have the front facing the front. And when you get done with that, and you get done with your second one, then you have a pair of blanket star earrings. So let's make the companion to the Aurora Drop earring. So for this one, we're going to start off with our 15s. We're going to put 9 of our 15s on our thread. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Then we're going to pick up our drop crystal drop. I'm going to go from front to the back, from back to the front. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go one direction. Then I'm going to put 9 more of the seed beads on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I'm going to go ahead and put this down close to the end of the thread. Just leave enough to be able to hold on to. Oop, make sure you're not going to lose any of your beads. There we go. And then I'm going to pick up the large crystal. And I'm going to go from left to right, right to left. It really doesn't matter, whichever direction you want to go in. Then we're going to pick up 9 more seed beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then we're going to go through, let's see, trying to figure out where this is sitting. Alright, so then we're going to go back from the front to the back this time of our crystal. So we're putting 9 seed beads on either side of the large crystal. Now we need to put the last 9 seed beads off to here in the back. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So now we're going to go back through the crystal one more time. In fact, I think I'll go this direction. I'll go from left to right. Just making sure you're not going through any of the other seed beads. If any of your seed beads are getting stuck in the crystal like it looks like this one is, then you can push it out with your needle. Maybe. Of course you're going to get stuck in there. Why would you not get stuck in there? Come on, dude. You can get out. There it goes. Yay. Alright. Okay, so now that's in there. And then the last thing you need to do is go back through. Oh, yep, there are my beads. I was like, where'd my beads go? I lost my beads. I was like, you're supposed to go back through the last 9 beads, the first 9 beads that we put on. Alright, so go back through the first 9 beads that we put on. You'll end up going back through the crystal, the drop. And then now that gets, with a little bit of difficulties there, that gets 4 strands of your seed beads through both crystals. So you've got 9 here on the front on either side, and then you have 9 on the back on either side. Alright, so now we need to get up here to the top. This earring is very, very quick to make. So just pick which side, doesn't matter which, just make sure you go through the 9 beads on which other side that you want to. And then we're going to go back through the crystal. Oops, oh, that's the 9th bead. Okay, and then we're going to go back through the crystal. Then we're going to add 9 beads of your 15s. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And pick up your 8-0. And then 9 more of your 15s. 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, and 9. So you have 9, and then 1, and then 9 again. And then we're going to go back through the crystal in the same direction that we're going right now. Now I like to put at least one more thread path through anything that my ear wire is going to be sitting in. And in this case we're going to put a jump ring sitting there. But I'm going to go ahead and put one more thread path through these beads. So go through all 19 beads that you added up here at the top. And then we need to get to where our starter thread is at again. So I am going to continue through. Let's see, that's that, and then this is that one you have to go through. I'm going to continue through the bead itself, the large bead. And then we need to get back over here. Our starter thread is on this side. So I'm just going to choose one of these routes. I'm going to go to the back side though. I'm going to go down the 9 beads over here on the back. And then I'm just going to go straight through to the 9 beads on the opposite side. So I went down the right hand side here on the back. I'm just going to go to the left hand side right away and go up those 9 beads. And then that should put you right where your thread is at. With that being the case, then all we have to do is tie a knot. Just make sure you don't tie your knot around any of your 15s, because there's a whole lot of 15s sitting there. So you want to make sure that that knot doesn't go around any of your 15s. And then I like to try to get my knot away from, or my thread away from the knot. So I'm going to go back through the large crystal if I can. There we go. And then try to take that knot with me a little. So that way it hopefully sits in the middle of the large crystal. And then we're going to burn down our 2 sides. Create a little ball right there at the end. That way it'll help keep your knot from unraveling too quickly, if it decides to do that. And then the only other thing that we need to do is we need to put a jump ring into this 8/0 up here at the top. When you put your jump ring in the 8/0, then we can add the ear wire right away. And then this earring is complete. So let's hope I can get this to go through here without any difficulties. Because with my luck, I'll end up throwing the jump ring somewhere and not know where it went. Like I just did. Alright, let's see, if you're having problems with this, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to try to get that 8/0 to pop out a little bit more. I'm going to hold it with my nail and see if that helps some. And that way I should be able to get through that 8/0 a little easier. Alrighty, yep, there it goes. Alright, so just make sure you put your ear wire on to where the front is facing the front. And then close up your jump ring. And then when you get that done, and you get your other one made, then you have a pair of Aurora Drop earrings. That's what they look like. That's all 6 earring designs from this box, mixing bead weaving and wire working to show how far the Arctic Aurora collection could go. Tell me in the comments which pair you'd make first, or which technique you'd like to see more of in a future video. And if you enjoy videos like this where I push a bead box as far as it'll go, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what I create next.